Hi, my name's Anita. I run So What, based in Manchester, and today I'm going to show you how to upcycle or refresh an old piece of clothing. I'm going to work on a pair of jeans today, but I've done this with an old sort of fake leather jacket. You could do it on like a shirt, t-shirt, whatever you feel like really. And this is just one way that I'm going to show you of how you can change an old piece of clothing from something that you don't really enjoy wearing into something a bit more interesting and bring it up to date. So this is my old pair of jeans, which I've already done some work on using fabric paint or textile paint. But it's just on one side. That's just kind of the design I wanted to go for. I based mine on it's Memphis inspired, which is really bright, colourful geometric shapes and colours. If you look it up, you'll get an idea of what it's about, but there's no like set rules for it. So I also used acrylic paint, which didn't actually wash very well. So it was just an experiment because I was going to get rid of them anyway. So I wasn't too fussed if it didn't work out right, but it turned out pretty cool. So today I'm going to add to this. So the design that I did is like on the left hand side of my jeans when I'm wearing them. So what I'm wanting to do, just to add a little bit more interest, I'm going to add something similar but on the right leg. And I also know that because of the style of the jeans, they're quite loose and baggy. I always roll the hems up. I always do a turn up. So I'm not going to start right at the bottom of the jeans. So I'm not going to start from here because I know that I'll just turn it up and you won't see it. So I'll kind of work out how I would normally wear them. So say if you always turn your sleeves up on a shirt, there's no point painting or designing anything on there because you won't see it. So I'm going to start sort of around, like going up the leg from the bottom, just to see what it looks like, and just to give it a bit more interest and like balance out the design. So I've got something on the left, something on the right. Okay. The design that I'm going to use today, and because of the fabric that I'm using, like it's just jeans, so it's essentially cotton, so I can just use a normal fabric paint. If you were going to paint onto something that's leather or fake leather, then you need to buy leather paint, which it's just to do with how it like soaks into the fabric or sits on top of it. It's called leather paint because it needs to be on leather. Like, it's that simple. So with all of these, so these are just from a place called Fred Aldous, and they have like a whole range of colours. These are just the colours that I wanted to use for this project. So I've got a few of those, and I've got just a range of paintbrushes. I've had these for ages, there's a range of like quite thick ones, quite thin ones if I wanted to do sort of tiny detail, but you don't need to spend loads of money on this. Like, you could just get some, like a set of kids paintbrushes, totally fine. And then I've also got just to draw my design onto the jeans. It's a range of like quilter's pencils, or it's essentially tailor's chalk but in a pencil form, so it's easier to sort of get the detail in there when I'm drawing. You might just want to go freehand. You might just want to just start painting or start doing your thing without having designed it first. Like, that's totally fine. But for me, because I want it to look a specific way and I want to plan it out first, I'm going to draw my design on to the fabric before I start painting. Okay, so I've got my jeans that I'm going to be working on next to me, so I know roughly what size the design needs to be, just to make life easier. So I'm just going to sketch out a few designs, see which one I like best, and then we'll draw it onto the actual piece of clothing. So I want it to look kind of like the other bit that I've done, but if you're starting from scratch, like, you can just go wild. You can look for inspiration online, like if there's certain patterns that you like, a certain flower that you like, there's no reason why you can't do that. Yeah, just go for it. Okay, so I'm just starting off with like a basic weird shape. I know I really want like some triangles in there, and some like squiggly lines, and we'll just play around. Okay, so that would probably go like here. We'll see. Like, I'm kind of just gonna go for it because, like, why not? I'll decide on colours once I've drawn it out, but I've kind of got an idea in my head that this squiggle line will probably be black, just because that's what I've done on the other bit. I'll have like a bright colour for the shape behind it. The triangle I'll probably do lighter with some dots on, and this little guy at the top, who knows, I'll just see what I feel like doing. And you can always add to it as well, like as you go in, like, and those shapes and colours and things might change as you do it. And like, if you make a mistake, you just have to adapt. Like, there's no right or wrong, it's your clothes. So I'm just going to start drawing on here. I've chosen a fabric chalk pencil just because I've practiced a little bit where it doesn't matter. So you want it to show up enough that you can paint your design on top of it, but you don't want it to show up too much so that it'll show through the paint when you're finished. So you might not be able to see the outline that I'm drawing, but I can see it. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to tidy this up as you're painting. So that is there. These have got a little bit of stretch to them as well, so the fabric's going to move, which is annoying, but it's manageable. It's only I'm pulling it quite tight here. I've drawn my design onto the fabric. You can just about see the outline, which is kind of as much as I want. I'm going to keep the rough pencil sketch next to me in case I kind of start painting and can't quite remember where the lines go and it's not very clear, just to sort of remind me. So before I start painting, I've rolled the cuff down a little bit because I don't want it just to start above that. I want it to start a little bit below, so it looks like it's coming out of the bottom of the leg. So just when you're doing this, think about the placement of like where you want your design to go. I didn't want mine to just go on the front of the leg. I wanted it to kind of wrap around the side a little bit. So you might have to sort of move your fabric around or move your piece of clothing around as you do it. Just make sure it's dry before you sort of turn it over or anything. So what I'm going to do now is find like some newspaper or some cardboard or something to go underneath here so that when I'm painting it doesn't go through to the other side of the jeans or whatever clothing you're using. Like this is quite thick denim, so it should be okay, but if you were doing like a cotton shirt or something and painting on that, it might soak through and you'd see like you'd get paint or like ghost of the design on the back of it, and it might even go through to your table or whatever you're working on. So just sort of protect the surface that you're working on with newspaper or something, or like a plastic sheet, and then put something underneath, like if you're working on a sleeve or a leg, put it inside, or if you're just working flat, then just put it underneath so you've only got one layer of fabric and then the paint's not going to go through it. So I'm going to paint some of these shapes in white first, so to like block them off and give them a base, because this is quite dark fabric. If I want something bright on top, I've just found that having white underneath as like the first coat just gives it just a bit more vibrancy. For the sort of black squiggly line, I'm not going to bother because it's black, so it's fine. But for this, I'm going to do the sort of big squiggly shape. There's no technical term for this. And the triangle and the little guy at the top. I'm going to do those in a white base coat essentially. But I'm going to leave a tiny gap. I'm going to try just to sort of show me where the shapes need to sort of start and finish. So we'll do that. I'm just using like a thickish brush because I don't need to do any detail and it's quite a big space to fill. I'm just going to use my white fabric paint. So I'm going to get going. So with each layer, you need to let it dry. So you need to set aside quite a bit of time for this. I think usually I leave it over a few days and just do a bit each time, like another layer, let it dry overnight. But it's, you know, so it gives you a good solid colour if you do it that way. I'm gonna, to try and speed this up, I'm gonna use a hairdryer and just cheat a little bit. But what I would say just in advance, so the textile fabric that I'm using, always read the instructions, always read the small print. So for these ones, I couldn't just let it dry and then put it in the wash, like it would come out and go all over my other clothes, or it wouldn't last very long. What it does tell you to do is to heat set it. So what that means is that you don't put any water in your iron, so there's no water in your iron, and then you iron it at a really hot temperature. Obviously, if you're painting on something that might melt, if you do that, you need to sort of think about how you might do that. Although that'd be really hard to paint on, to be honest. But yeah, say for cotton, it can take it. So you'd put it on the maximum temperature and iron it from like the inside out. So you iron it from the wrong side. It also, I'd advise to like put something underneath the painted side or while you're ironing or whatever, so it doesn't stick and ruin either your iron or your ironing board. And then once you've done that and it's totally dry and you've ironed it, you have heat sealed it, then you can put it in the wash like normal, and it'll stay. And it won't sort of run off in the rain or anything. So I just thought I'd warn you about that in advance in case you think like, I finished painting, I can wear it. No, just there is that final step. It does take a bit of time. So I'm gonna have a brew. I'm gonna go and grab my hairdryer and try and speed up the drying process. But you could just leave it, or like depending on how thin the layer is, like it might dry sooner. But yeah, as you can sort of see as I was painting, the first layer kind of it soaks in, but then that means that when I paint on top of it again, that colour is sort of already sitting on something and it's not going to soak into the fabric, so it will show up at like its true colour rather than kind of go in a sort of faded version. So you can see that like this white looks really patchy, rather than a solid white, even though I put quite a bit of paint on. That's because the fabric sort of soaked it up a bit. Alright, I'm going to get on with that. So the first layer is dry, ish. So I've got some water that is now white, because I'm like washing my brushes out just so it doesn't dry on the brushes and ruin them. And then because I'm going to use some of those brushes again like fairly soon, I've just got some kitchen roll to sort of wipe the water and excess paint off. So I'm moving on to a different colour. I'm going to do this little shape at the top first because it's out of the way, so I can carry on working on these and not get paint all over my hands. So I'm going to do that in green. I'm going to use like a slightly smaller brush, just because it's a slightly more delicate shape. So I'm not sure how many layers this will actually take to get like the solid colour that I want. But the white will definitely have helped sort of give it a proper base. So I might only need like 2 coats, which would be amazing. When I was doing the other design on here and hadn't really practiced it first or thought it through, to be honest, I was just messing around. It took like quite a few coats, like maybe 5 on some pieces, that were lighter, just to sort of get them to show up properly. So there wasn't like, you can still see bits of like the denim underneath, which is fine. You don't notice it from a distance, it's only up close. But yeah, if I'd have thought about it, I would have done the sort of white base underneath first. It's just like if you're painting your house or like painting on canvas, like if you're an artist, you would prime your canvas, or you sort of do an undercoat on your walls and you always do a coat afterwards. It's just common sense. But yeah, I mean, you learn from your mistakes as well, so this is one that I've learnt, so you don't have to. So there's some bits where the white paint still isn't 100% dry, but I'm not too bothered because it seems to be covering it quite well. Now when you're doing the colour, you need to be a bit more careful about your outlines because this is where it actually matters. So yeah, it's about using the right brush, like the right size brush for what you're doing, and just sort of, taking your time. But yeah, if you've never painted before, like just maybe practice on paper first before you go straight onto fabric, just so you get a feel for what it's like. I use my paintbrushes the way I would sort of colour in, like with a pen, or with pencil crayons. Like that's kind of how I hold it and use it. But it's a lot more flexible than that, like the way the brush moves. So just, yeah, have a play around if you've not really done this before. But like I said, if it's something that you would have got rid of anyway, because it was tired or old or you just don't like it anymore, then what's the harm in trying to jazz it up and make it look really good again? And if it messes up, like, so say if this messed up because I've done it on the bottom of the jeans, I could just cut them off and like make them into shorts if I really wanted to. But hopefully it won't come to that. So that is actually like, that's actually a really bright colour. That's gone on really well. I'm still going to do another coat after it's dried, but that's just because that's what I want to do. If you're happy with that, then you could stop at that. Now, because I've done that up there, it means I can carry on painting these bits without sort of getting my hand in it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do these colours first, and then I'm going to do the black squiggle, and then add any details that I want. So I've decided I'm going to do the big splodge in like it's a pale pink colour. I'm not normally a pink person, but hey. And I'm going to do the triangle in purple so that they contrast really well. And then the black squiggle, I didn't want the sort of main splodge to be too dark, so then you wouldn't see the contrast. So that's why I've picked those colours. That's just because that's what I've got. Like, you can get the rainbow, pretty much. So I'm going to get on with that, and then it's a question of letting it dry again. And then another coat and letting it dry again, and then add any details and let it dry. So on these ones, I was just checking before, so to dry completely takes about 6 hours. This is why I'm saying like you can't just do it in a day. It still needs to dry overnight, just to sort of really get it to stick. And until that point, like you can still, these are great because they're water mixable, so you can thin them down, you can mix them together and use water to clean your brushes, but once they're on, like they're on. So don't do it on something that you really, really care about if it's your first go, okay? So yeah, I'm just gonna get on with it, and I'll sort of see you after the next coat's done. So I've done a few layers on these sort of coloured bits now. I think I've only done 2 coats. So it's come out pretty good because we did the white base underneath. So I'm going to move on to do like the black squiggle that's sort of going to go down here. And then I'm just going to see whether I feel like adding any details. Might do like some little dots on here, or like some shadow on the sort of green splodge. Let's see how it looks when it's finished. See if it needs another coat on any bits, just to finish it off properly. And then I'm just going to let it dry. So I'll show you how it looks when it's finished.